It's a question of chance, isn't it? What is the chance of people in various parts of the world joining up together to do something like this? The concerted effort was the thing.
Nobody had climbed in this part of the world before, women or men. We wouldn't have been interested in doing the first female ascent. We wanted to do the first ever ascent.
Climbing opportunities for women were huge because they hadn't really got the idea that they could simply go off and do things for themselves.
Barbara and I didn't think of it as a women's liberation trip, but I hope it showed women that they could do the same thing as men did perfectly well. In some ways, I think the 1960s were the golden age for women. We were able to drive through countries like Afghanistan, Turkey, the Middle Eastern countries, without any problems at all. I think it was a safer world then. It was certainly a freer world, being able to go out and through all these different countries. I'm Josephine Scarr, and I was part of the Jagdula expedition with 5 other women. The Jagdula expedition was to the northwest corner of Nepal, and we were heading for the Kanjiroba Himal, which was an unexplored area, but we wanted to go to places that were a question mark on the map. The expedition was 13 weeks, and it was in 1962.
I loved Wales from the beginning, from the start. My family evacuated itself to Wales during the war because my mother took us into the hills. We were sheltered from the war by living in Wales. My name is Denise Evans, and I was part of the Jagdula expedition. We were 6 women looking for a peak we could climb, and we had spotted one. We had spotted a photograph of the mountain in question, which Joe went on to call La Shama. We just thought of it as Jagdula in those days. The leader of the team was Dorothea Gravina, and then the doctor of the team was Nancy Smith, and then there was Pat Wood, who was a dentist, and there was Barbara Spark and Joe Scarr, of course. We were all members of the Pinnacle Club anyway. We all knew each other and had climbed together quite a lot already.
Barbara and I chose to drive to India by car. It was the normal way of going, if you had enough time, to the Himalayas at that stage, was to drive out rather than fly. We never thought of flying.
I flew to India with Nancy. The 2 of us flew together. I thought Joe and Barbara were very enterprising in going out by car. Probably would have enjoyed going by car, but planes are quick, aren't they? I'd done the food, put it into boxes, and those boxes had to travel out to India. Locating them and making sure that they got to Nepal was quite a palaver.
It was a 3-week walk-in to even reach our mountain. So there were no roads or anything in northwest Nepal, not even very good tracks. And so we set off at one stage with 90 porters carrying all this gear.
There were rivers to cross. We had fun, not exactly swimming, but washing, splashing about, because it was hot, of course, and which we enjoyed. There were, in fact, crocodiles in some of those rivers.
After we'd been walking for about a week to reach our mountains, we came over the top of a range, and suddenly there was a panorama in front of us, and we could see the whole of West Nepal, from Annapurna and Dhaulagiri in the centre of Nepal, right through to our range, which was the Kanjiroba Himal, which we were heading for.
Your eyes are drawn towards them at once, of course. And the closer you get, the more impressive they get, because they rise as you get nearer. I think there was an element of excitement all the time about a mountain that hadn't been climbed, and were we good enough to do it? You know, Sherpa Sardar, he realised that we needed to acclimatise, and so he made us go up one or two smaller peaks in the neighbourhood of the main peak that we were after. And of course, you've got good views from these smaller peaks round about. When we were doing the small peaks, we could look across at the big peak, and it was very enticing.
It was a new experience for the Sherpas because most of them had never seen women climbers before. They were very chivalrous and very caring indeed. The only trouble we had is once we got actually climbing, they wanted to lead all the time. And we had a bit of a standoff one evening at one of the higher camps, and we said, look, you carry the heavy loads, which we can't do, but we don't want to always be being led up the mountain. We want to find the way, do the route finding, lead the way. So after that, we shared everything, and it worked out fine. Meanwhile, we'd been prospecting a route up La Chama, our main objective. La Chama headed the valley, and we had to find a route up it, and we established eventually 3 camps up it, the top one being at 20,000 feet. And so we allowed 2 weeks to climb the mountain. Climbing La Chama was very exciting. It was challenging because one had to find a route, a safe route. And we didn't have good weather all the time. We had a few days of bad weather, and we had to wear our boots at night inside the sleeping bags, or they would have frozen up as well. So there were plenty of difficulties.
We had to go up and down between the camps, yes, ferrying loads. Of course, the Sherpas did the ferrying. We just had to ferry ourselves, which was bad enough because of the height. The higher you went, the more effort it was. So it got progressively worse as you went up. You become very slow at that altitude.
Pat was a very good climber, but she actually became unconscious. She blacked out on one slope. Luckily we were roped, so she dangled on the rope. She went down, but then she came right back up again and eventually summited the peak. Barbara and I were the first summit party with 2 Sherpas, and we really enjoyed finding a route and getting to the summit without too many difficulties. The emotion was very special when we reached the summit, and our Sherpas were equally excited. We took lots of photos, and from there you could see the whole of West Nepal. We could see into Tibet. The Tibetan frontier was not very far to the north. We all 6 hoped to reach the summit, and in the end just 4 of us did.
No, we did not all reach the summit. Dorothea went ill first, so she was down at base camp. And then I had got up to Camp 3 with the others, and then I got ill up there. And so then I had to go down to base camp. So neither Dorothea nor I were able to do the top of the mountain. Well, it made us feel very sad, really, very sad, but at the same time, we were very pleased that the others actually got to the top so well without any problem. We made up for the fact that Dorothea and I hadn't been able to do it by climbing some more peaks, and which we both climbed, which were also quite high, not as high nor as big, but still quite reputable little mountains.
Barbara and I were given permission under Sherpa to go and make a map and survey a valley on the far side of our mountain, which had never been trodden in by a human being before, or a yak, because you had to abseil down into it, and at the bottom end of the valley there was a gorge which nobody could get up or down. So we had a wonderful 3 days down there making a map and just exploring.
Dorothea had the marvellous idea Instead of going back the way we'd come, we were going to go beyond the Kola, which is a river east of where we'd been. A part of Nepal, which borders on the Tibetan frontier, from Pokhara, which is a big town in the middle of Nepal. We took a plane to Kathmandu. It was a big adventure, the whole thing. We were all very happy, really. The trip did bring us closer together, yes. I think we understood each other, and we got to know each other, really, pretty well by then.
The climbing scene in the 1950s and 60s was difficult for women because the clubs were men only, so we had to form our own club. And the Pinnacle Club was the only all-women climbing club in Britain. And so I joined that in 1958 to be able to have people to climb with. Women's exploits in the mountains are not well known at all. And this may help a little bit and inspire others to have a go and do what they want to do.
I don't think people had really focused on women's expeditions. There were so few of them. In fact, I think people were surprised. So we were just really proving that women could do these things.
I didn't think of it as a women's liberation trip, but my book, 4 Miles High, was translated into Hungarian to inspire, to show women that they could do what they wanted to do regardless. And I'd always wanted to discover things and go to new places. And so I think I hope it showed women that they could do the same thing as men did perfectly well. If I could give any advice to a young female climber wanting to know what they could do, I would just say, go for it.
I'm very pleased to live in these little hills. I wouldn't quite call them the mountains myself, but I love North Wales, really. When I look out of my window, I'm reminded of other mountains, the Alps and the Himalayas, yes. I think mountains do make one feel good, if one has my sort of disposition. They somehow make you feel drawn towards the lonely places. There's something slightly lonely here. I'm part of North Wales now.
I'm going to have to do something with this cat. Sorry. Hoy cat, off you go. Go on. She loves to get in the back of the chair. So let's start again on that bit.
I hadn't really learned how to film, you see. It was my first go at it. The trouble was I underexposed the whole bloody shoot. Well, I feel bad about it even now, you know.